Oh, yeah, he wants to be on the show apparently too.
Yeah, he sounds really excited.
You want to be on the show too? All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Kofi Hayford with DictionBuddy, and I'm excited to present to you today the prolific composer and pianist Felix Jarrar. I know we're waiting for people to join, so I'll give it a couple of minutes before we really get started. But the purpose of this podcast and this series is to introduce you to people of influence in the industry of music, specifically classical music, and to let them tell their stories about how they got into the career they're in and what their aspirations are, any advice they can offer people who are earlier stages in their careers, and just a place to have a really valuable conversation about music in general. It bears there's no need to introduce what happened last year with the pandemic and how that has changed how people are engaging with the music industry as artists themselves, but also how audiences have adjusted to this new reality. So, you know, I hope that as you join this conversation, you do reach out to us with your questions and your thoughts. And if you have experienced Felix's work, I'd love for you to chime in and just talk about that experience. It's actually a huge privilege to have work written for you and to debut a work. So I really, I'm very excited to get this conversation going. So, um, Felix,
Yeah.
before let's wait for a few minutes before
Okay,
let people get in,
cool.
and then we'll kick it off. But yeah, we were just talking right before we went live about cats. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not really I've never been a cat person in my life, but I'm actually kind of a temporary cat dad for a few weeks as I'm taking care of my girlfriend's mom's cat.
Yeah.
And you might be hearing in the background actually.
Yeah, I grew up with the Siamese and they're very, very, very vocal. Like they're
Yeah,
incredibly loud. It's
really.
oh yeah, it's like when you could hear her in my family house I grew up in, you could hear her
Huh?
downstairs from like the bedrooms. So like
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
and she was really tiny. She was like about 9 pounds, and she was really,
Okay.
really, really vocal. Like it's a I have no idea. It's yeah, it's
That's
just like a thing.
kind of cute, but kind of terrifying.
It's adorable, but like to a certain point. But like in the middle of the night, it's not nice.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, he at night at times he gets a little bit frustrated, and then he comes and like sits outside the door and wants me to come and play, play with one of the toys with him, and I'm like, well, I got responsibilities, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, cats are have a mind of their own and they love their toys. My sister's one of my
Yeah.
sister's cats has red a red ribbon, like, and
Hmm.
it's like it's her favorite toy. So like it's
Yeah.
always like she's always in the mood for that. Like that's how cats
Nice,
are. That's how
nice.
cats are.
Yeah, yeah. I'm learning this, so it's been a quite an education for me.
Yes.
Um, Okay, well, we'll let people trickle in as the broadcast goes on, but let's kick it off.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Felix, tell us your story, your origin story. I'm curious how you got started, where you're from, your background. I'd love to hear about who you are and everything that makes you you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm from Connecticut. I'm from
Mm.
a town called Fairfield. It's about an hour outside of Manhattan. So that's
Oh,
where I was born with my mom, dad, and my sister. I was raised there. And my parents were not particularly musical themselves. However, we lived near a friend of our family's that had a
mhm.
piano. And so when I
Okay.
was a toddler, I loved to play it. And I had the habit of always making them stop at this person's house to always play the piano anytime we were driving somewhere.
Hmm.
So, and it was the house you would pass on the way to go to the highway, everything. So
Yeah,
it kind
yeah.
of became like a big problem. And I was kind of very stubborn and kind of a brat. So I was like,
Huh,
they bought me a piano. So, and so
good.
I had an upright piano, and then I started playing piano and composing at the same time when I was 5. I was really influenced by ballet. I did a lot of ballet dancing when I was a kid.
Oh,
So yeah, I did. I did a lot of,
that's
and I
great.
did, yeah, and I did like a lot of. They would always have me do like in the Nutcracker, like all the. I used to be able to like walk on my hands, do like one-handed cartwheels and shit like that. So like, it was like random, and I loved the
That's
music.
awesome.
Yeah, I loved the music of Tchaikovsky and all of that, and that was very inspiring. Actually, my first composition was called The Firebird, so ballet
Ah,
definitely in my that was
inspired by the Nutcracker a little
or
bit.
well Stravinsky's Firebird too. So like that's
Oh, I
like
see. Okay. Got
yeah.
it. Got it. Got it.
So
Yeah.
and then I started composing a lot of like piano pieces, Juvenalia, and then
Mhm.
when I was in fifth grade, I saw my first opera, Le Nozze di Figaro, and it's a great first opera. It introduced me to the form, and I was immediately hooked.
Mhm.
And so I
Mhm.
my piano teacher I ended up meeting after I started studying, who Burton Hathaway, who has been a huge
Mhm.
mentor of mine, and a pedagogue and a real genius of piano
Awesome.
playing.
Awesome.
He had this huge library with all of these books and all of these recordings and these biographies and scores. And he had a random like collection of like a lot of opera CDs. So I
Okay.
started after I heard Figaro, I started doing a lot of exploring, and I literally borrowed all of these CDs, and it was like
Mhm.
you had the standard rep, you had Verdi, Puccini, you had all the Baroque operas. He also had a lot of bel canto operas, obscure bel canto, which
Mhm.
actually also became a huge influence for me. So I listened to a
Uh-huh.
lot of them, like a lot of the Sills and Callas recordings, and Sutherland. And so I sort of just like gave myself that education. And my sister and I would go to the public library and decide which opera we are going to rent, and that would be the one we'd like watch for a few days or for the week.
Mhm.
And so yeah, we kind of like just did a lot of exploring when I was a kid, and I really loved that. And then when I right before I turned, I was a teenager. I was 12. I became homeschooled because like I wanted to compose more and do more
Mm.
playing on my time instead
Yeah.
of like the standard school day. So
Curriculum. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so what ended up happening was I was homeschooled until senior year in high school. And I just devoted a lot of time to playing and practicing and composing.
Mhm.
I wrote my first opera when I was 15. It's like a juvenilia piece. I don't allow anyone to hear it.
Oh,
But
really? Come on.
yeah, no, it's like I was 15 and it was fun. It was
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
No, I get
myth
it.
of Apollo and Hermes, and it was
Mhm.
yeah. So I did stuff like that, which was actually just super helpful for me, just like putting it
Mhm.
down on paper, learning how to at least write something in some form. And it like just kind of those aspects, which I would later use when I also developed my compositional voice more. And I always loved also like academics, and like I loved biology. I toyed with the idea of being a neuroscience major more than toyed with it actually. And but
Mm.
yeah, I in my undergrad I almost had enough to I had enough like credits to do a biology minor. I just never did.
Wow.
So yeah,
You
so
might wanna go back.
I know,
Get
right?
it.
Hashtag regrets. Anyway,
Right.
I decided that I didn't want when I was in my undergrad to be in a conservatory because I wanted to do something where I could pursue music at a high level, but I also wanted to have access to a lot of academics and a lot of courses and just
Mhm.
like work
Like
on my writing.
complete education, right?
Yeah, a liberal arts education, which was like really important to me. And stumbled upon a school in Vermont called Marlborough College, which is the home of the Marlborough Music
Mm.
Festival, which is a big like standard rep classical music festival for chamber music.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, and basically, there it was a really interesting school because there's no majors. Everyone does something called the plan of concentration, which is in their last 2 years of their undergrad, they
Uh-huh.
create an original body of work, a thesis project, which could be a
Okay.
paper, a show, or something. And it's multifaceted. So it's very much like prepping you for like grad school or other things like that, which is like the whole point of it.
Awesome.
So basically, I was sort of able to create my own curriculum. And so I did like classes in journalism, biology, I did like combinatorics. I did like a year of programming, but then I also,
Wow.
yeah, I did a lot
That
of
is
things.
a
I love
very complete education.
I love sciences. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Journalism. I also did. And then they also had a thing called tutorials, and tutorials are one-on-one classes that you self-design to do with the
Mhm.
faculty. And so basically all of like my composition study was done that way. And I
Hmm.
did all my theory, and Schenker analysis, like all that stuff.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and
Fun,
it was a
man.
lot. It was very intense, but it was like very fun for me. And I ended up connecting with a couple of teachers there who were great, in particular Robert Murfeld. So basically the school like brought him in to teach me. So he was my piano teacher, and it was really great. I learned a lot from him. And for my project, I decided to not only write an opera, but also have it produced in Vermont and in New York City. So because always the
Hmm.
idea after school would for me to be eventually go to New York. And I'd
Okay.
like use
Got
the
it.
time
Got
in
it.
Vermont just like to cook and like work on my stuff and just
Mhm.
be in the woods, because up there you could literally just get lost in the woods for hours and it
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
totally be okay. Like there was no other care in the world.
Right.
Time was not like important. You had your meals in the
Mhm.
dining hall, you had your classwork, but other than that,
Right.
you
You get
could
lost
really
in your
just,
own thoughts, right? It's you
yeah.
can really
And
tap into the
I
depth of
probably won't ever have that
creativity.
again in my life. So it was like a very much like a very like a very special time. Like if it sounds like a romantic idealization of it, it probably
Mhm.
is. But that's how I remember it now, looking back.
Yeah,
Um,
most memories are a little bit idealized and
Yes,
romanticized, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I decided to do opera on Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, which
Ah,
I saw when
okay.
I was 11 as a play alongside Charlotte's Web and Amelia Bedelia, because that's how it was.
Hmm.
Anyway, I loved how it looked on the stage, and I wanted to adapt into an
Mhm.
opera. And so
Mhm.
I studied, I did a whole libretto study, self-design class where I like literally researched, Debussy did a version, tried to do a version of The Fall of the House of Usher. I looked into
Mhm.
Glass is one adaptation. I looked into a lot of, and
Okay,
I
okay.
wrote the
Oh,
libretto
Glass? I didn't
for.
know Glass did that.
Yeah, he has an
Okay,
opera on The Fall of the House of Usher.
cool.
And I basically took all of that and wrote the libretto and the score. And I also did classes on producing it. And so
Okay.
going to an undergrad school that's liberal arts, they have grants for student research. And so I made a proposal which did my research project as a professional production. So I was able to get a lot of
Wow,
grant funding through that. And I ended up having
wow.
auditions in New York, and hiring singers and instrumentalists. I conducted from the piano, and a director, B. Goodwin. That's how I met B. Goodwin.
Uh-huh, so
Was
you've known her a long time. Okay.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
yes.
nice,
We
nice.
connected almost 6 years ago for the
Mhm,
production, and then 5 years ago, 2016, Usher went up. So for that year, we worked
mhm.
on it, and so basically, that show was my first, like, I would say, mature, like, theatrical composition that I
Mhm.
had produced, and it's one
Mhm.
of the earliest pieces in my output, and that I still.
Okay.
Uh, do concerts with, from arias from it and stuff like that. And basically I had a great time just getting to not only write the piece but also learn so much from rehearsing it,
Mhm.
like collaborating, accompanying, doing all this stuff, preparing for the auditions. I learned,
Mhm.
about how to collaborate, about how to work with singers, about how to write
Yeah,
music for the voice.
for the
And
voice.
yeah, yeah. And
Jinx.
yes, and also,
Yeah,
work with instrumentalists, instrumentation, which is super important for operas and not actually talked about a lot. Is like, because it's a
totally, yeah,
whole,
yeah.
creates a whole world. And I
Mhm.
write for chamber ensemble, so this was for piano quartet, so violin,
Yeah.
viola, cello, and piano, and so kind of creating the
Mhm.
world with that. And
Excellent.
I basically just
Quick comment. Looks like Andrews has wants to say it's really great to learn so much about you.
uh
It's actually just to pause for a moment. It's not often people get to hear the long form, story about you, because we read in
yeah.
a bio like it's like 100 words. You can never encapsulate who someone is in such a short, um, short excerpt, right? So it's really great that we're getting to learn all this about you. So
Yeah,
wanted to make
yeah.
sure you saw that comment.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, absolutely. And from there, I ended up getting my first commission, which was a string quartet, which went up at Church of the
Mm,
Intercession. And that was about I used Walt Whitman poetry and used it as a commemoration for the Orlando massacre at the Pulse
mhm.
nightclub. And so
Oh,
basically,
right.
yeah. And from there, I went to grad school at Brooklyn College. So that's where I did my master's degree in composition.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be in New York, but I like didn't want to go into debt, a lot of debt,
Mm,
or like go into something that I couldn't
smart
I
move.
couldn't afford. And
Yeah,
CUNY's
yeah,
extremely affordable.
yeah.
And there were great teachers there. I studied with like Wang Ji, Tanya Leon, and Jason Eckert, and ended up doing my
Mhm.
thesis with Jay. And it turned out to be great because my degree was in composition, but a lot of my scholarship work and assistantships were performance. I became the assistant
Mhm.
music director for the contemporary ensemble, which is co-run by Ursula Oppens and a lot of really great people, and Marion Githfeld, so real giants in the field of new music. So that
Yeah,
was really great. I worked a lot with Whitney
yeah.
George, who I've done several projects with, and also I've
Mhm.
played her music. So there were a lot of things that I learned from that. And so basically within that, I ended up writing 3 operas while I was there, and several chamber pieces and song cycles. And
Wow, and what time frame was that in? I mean, that sounds like a
so
lot.
this was between January 2017 and then I graduated in
Mhm.
May 2019. So I took like an extra
Yeah.
semester because I had my
Mhm.
assistantship, and I was like, you just do
Sure.
1 credit and I can keep it. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, why? Because like, what else am I going to be doing? Like, I
Yeah.
ended up doing that. And
Mhm.
those operas were the Christmas Carol, which went up with Gramercy Opera, and then
Cool. Oh, Magda.
which
Yeah.
B wrote the libretto for. We
Mhm.
also did a song cycle around this time called Songs of the Soul Beams, which went up at BAM and Le
Mhm.
Poisson Rouge. And then I wrote another opera with her, Tabula Rasa, which was a jazz opera that went up with
Mm.
New York Opera Alliance Opera Fest. And then my
Yes.
master's
Okay.
thesis
Gotcha.
was a drag comic opera called Mother Goose, which I wrote the score and libretto for, based on an original short story. Because I also love writing, so
Oh.
I love to do like creative writing, like very randomly. So
Mhm.
I had like this story that became Mother Goose, and so for my last opera and what ended up being my master's thesis, I was like, I wanted to put this up and do it, and so that
Oh.
show went up November 2019. And
Mhm.
and then
Nice.
it ended up going up at Dixon Place, and we had other productions that were scheduled, but
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
didn't happen.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically, I then fast forward all the cancellations. I sort of like kind of hopped on the virtual live
Mhm.
stream bandwagon and
Yeah. Yeah.
started doing my not only my own series on my
Mhm.
YouTube and on Facebook and other streaming platforms, but also other companies like Opera on Tap. I've worked a lot with
Mhm.
Barn Opera, and then a host of others, and just recordings and a lot of things, just for like people to like see my work and hear it. And it was also a great time to also write a lot of stuff I wouldn't otherwise have
Mhm.
time to, like
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
from rehearsal to
That was one
rehearsal.
of the gifts of this whole
Yeah, I was
situation,
lucky. I
right?
was lucky to
Yeah.
view it from the perspective, oh, this is like I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, but it was
It's an
something I
opportunity.
tried to make. I tried to make something positive out of a negative situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
There's
wasn't
a
like I was like
50 Cent said.
hustling all the time. I mean, I definitely
Mhm.
have my down moments, and like,
Of course, as you should.
but
Mhm.
definitely, it gave me like good direction. And so basically, I ended up writing. Well, we had a B and I had an opera called Hindsight, which before the pandemic was supposed to go up, which didn't. But then I wrote Patience and Pearl with her. I wrote a micro
Mhm.
opera on the Oval Portrait. I have Cask of Amontillado, Washington Square, Telltale Heart, and then a
Mhm.
Lady Macbeth opera. So I ended up writing about like,
You're very busy.
yeah, I sort of like, and then basically about like at this point, it's been like a year and a half, like I would say 80 or 90 songs. Like it's a
Jeez,
lot. It's like a lot.
that's a lot. Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of just like because there were like all these things, and I would have my friends who'd want to collaborate and they want to sing
Mhm,
stuff. And I was able to put my stuff together virtually with an accompaniment
mhm.
track because I had my piano here. So
Right. Mhm.
I mean, it wouldn't be like
Hmm.
it's not how we were like trained to collaborate,
Of
but
course,
it's a
yeah, but
way
you
to get
make do given the
yeah.
circumstances,
And I
right?
was
Yeah.
able to launch my Audition ARIA initiatives for Black Lives Matter, where singers can
Mhm.
get PDFs for their voice type of all the arias with a playlist on YouTube. And they get
Huh.
access to all the PDFs for contemporary arias. And so that's been ongoing. We've raised almost
Is it for
$500
is
through
it for you, your works, or all
it's
contemporary
my
works?
it's my it's
Y
my
It's
it's
yours,
from my
okay.
operatic repertoire. So all of my
Okay.
so if you have the mezzo arias it's from all my operas,
Mhm.
like in various
Got it,
different
got it, got it.
forms, but that are and
Can
people have
you,
been
give me the link for that so I can put
yeah,
that in
it's on
the
my
it's on
website.
your website? Okay.
Yeah, so if you go to my
Excellent. Yeah, that's
website
on the
and
ticker on the bottom, guys, for everyone
yeah,
that's tuning in.
yeah, so so you just drop down and see audition arias, and
Mhm.
we will be updating it later this year with more options because I've written
Excellent.
more pieces. But so
Yeah.
yeah, doing that,
Good,
which has been
good, good.
important, and then now I've been still continuing to do the live streams. I most recently had a workshop of my opera, The Telltale Heart, go up on my YouTube,
Yeah.
which took about a year to put together because it
Mhm.
was a lot of it was a lot of work to
Logistics.
yeah, and everyone
Yeah.
recording, and the singers
Mhm.
worked on the score with me, coaching it on Zoom for about like 6 months. So it was like
Nice.
a lot of yeah. So and now
And
that things are
actually, we are about we do have a clip of that, and I
yeah,
think it might be this is probably the perfect time to play it.
yeah,
But after that, I'd like to talk to you about your process, like how do you put these works together and how you go about tackling an opera versus a song, because I think it's going to be important to and
yes,
educational for everyone just to understand how a composer goes about this stuff. So,
yes,
let me go ahead and share my.
yeah.
Yeah, want to say
Oh,
something while I pull this?
yes. So this is from my opera, The Telltale Heart, from the Edgar Allan Poe short story. I wrote the score and libretto for it, and the excerpt we're going to
Mhm.
see is called "Deep in Earth," which is a duet between the narrator and the officer, where they are nostalgically thinking about their past lost loves who tragically passed away.
Very good, very good. All right, guys, we are ready for this. Let's see. Now you can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna start it playing now. Let's hide this.
I too carry the memory of my sweetheart and will forevermore. Her name was Lenore. I dream of those who dream by day are cognizant of many things which escape those who only dream by night. Deep in earth, our loves are lying, and we must weep alone. Tears run down my eyes while burning, and life becomes monotone. How shall our burial rite be read? A solemn song be sung, a requiem for the dead that ever died so young. Her friends are gazing on her, and her on her gaudy bier, and weep of dishonor, dead beauty without tear. They loved her for her wealth, and they hated her for her pride. But she grew in fame of love, and they loved her that she died. that my voice is growing weak, that I should not sing at all, or that my tone should be tuned to such solemn song, so mournfully, that the dead may feel no wrong. But she is gone above, with young hope at her side, and I am drunk with love of the dead who I wish could be my bride. In arms, our loves are lying, and we must live alone. On the coffin low and long, I strike a murmur sound through the grave chambers, who my song shall be the accompaniment. You died in my life's tune, but you did not die too fair. You did not die too soon, from whence you come and air. Join the untainted mirth of all the thrones in heaven. The hope to be every night, I will no requiem raise, but what you are your life, without pain or days. Tears run down my eyes while mourning, and life becomes more strong.
Beautiful.
Thank
Give
you.
me 1 second to get this back on. There we go. Yeah, there are a lot of elements to that piece, man. There's a lot. I mean, the text, first of all, is a lot of complexity, a lot
Yes.
of depth there, and can you tell us about that process and like what inspired you to write that opera in the first place and how you shaped it all?
Yeah, so I started immediately thinking about the Telltale Heart as soon as the Fall of the House of Usher went up 5 years ago. So I've been working on it since then, and I just always loved the idea of the beating heart and what it meant. And for this adaptation, I kind of wanted to show a different light in it. And so in my adaptation, the narrator is a queer woman who kills her father, the old man in the story, because he does not accept her for who she is. And I wanted to show a different light and kind of show, instead of stigmatizing it as mental illness, which is like what has historically been done, that it's a response to personal trauma. And that was important for me. And I always like to write for singers, individual singers. Like my saying that I tell is like, I don't write for voice types, I write for singers, like actual singers, just because everyone has like different things that they can and can't do. And that's because someone is in one
Sure.
box doesn't mean they're
Mhm.
gonna do everything necessarily. Like,
For that voice type, like
yeah, for
the
that voice
mezzo doesn't
type.
mean you can sing Carmen and Azucena and
Yeah,
like right,
absolutely.
right.
No, yeah,
Mhm.
completely. And so the singers in the clips of Anna Green and Alison Gish, I wrote the
Yeah, I know
roles
some
for
of them.
them. Yeah, I love her. I wrote the role of the lead role for Savannah, and I wrote the role of the
Mhm.
officer for Allison, and Allison edited it all together, the whole thing, and subtitled.
Wow,
So
wow, bravo to her.
yeah, yes.
She was in our French concert, actually, one of the winners for our French
Yeah, I
DictionBuddy
accompanied
contest.
that.
Yeah.
I
Oh, you
was
did? Oh, see?
yeah,
Small world.
yeah, I work with her. I work with her a lot and do, yeah. So
Mhm,
basically, so in terms of doing that, I workshopped the libretto. I actually, before the pandemic, I had a like a whole event at my apartment where we did like a whole reading, and I got feedback, and then I
mhm,
went and I edited it some more, and I added two roles. So there's the role of the Raven. So the Raven is the reliable narrator, and I took it from Poe's famous poem. And then I also
mhm.
added the role of the page boy to provide some relief towards it's a really, because it's a really tragic like story, and there's a lot of like despair and a lot of depression, and like the narrator the and the officer have a lot of that. So
Mhm.
I brought that to the work that wasn't there. Mhm.
Excellent, excellent. Looks like we have a question from Emma. Have you composed vocal music tech on text in other languages? And is that something you're planning to do if you haven't?
Oh, thanks, Emma. Yes, I do. I have actually several pieces I've written in German. I have a song cycle on Linnau poetry called Schilflieder, read poems, which for soprano, and then I have a cycle for bass that I premiered in December with my frequent collaborator Joe Pitel called Traumlieder, and it's
Oh, yeah, that
also
was great. Yeah,
oh, thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
we did it for my Christmas live stream, and St.
Mhm,
John the Divine also posted the videos that Joe put together from the accompaniment
mhm.
tracks. But
Excellent.
that's also Linnau poetry.
Mhm,
I've begun setting some Rilke texts. I've set two poems so far, and then I also have written an art song in French on a text of Rimbaud called Voyal. So that's also something I've done. And so, yeah, I'm definitely planning to do more with other languages. And yeah,
fantastic. So French, German, um, are there
English.
any other language and English? Yeah. Which other have you considered any others? Are you planning on them or?
I mean, it kind of depends. Each language, like I studied the grammar of German when I was an undergrad, so it's that one's the easiest for me to get
Mhm.
into. For
Okay.
French, I definitely have to like sit with it, listen to it. I also love to listen to the words spoken by like speak native speakers, and so to get it in my
Mhm.
ear. And then
Yeah.
I've also, I mean, definitely, I'd love to set stuff in other languages. Like, I think it'd be cool to explore Spanish. And then, like, someone contacted me possibly about doing something in Russian.
Ooh,
So,
that's
yeah, which would be,
interesting.
I love a challenge. Let's see if I'm up to it. I don't know. I also want to definitely set some more Latin texts. I think that would be super fun. I've done some secular music, but I'd love to do some more. So yeah, that's, and then obviously English. So yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. So you've done a lot of work as a composer and also as a collaborative pianist. How does it feel working with other, like as a composer, now that you've obviously written a lot of your own work, how does that change the way you perceive the music of the greats and those who have become sort of standard in the repertoire?
I always try to approach things with the same kind of point of view. Because you have the
Mhm,
music and you have what's written, and also phrasing, and also the composer's marks, and dealing with text. What does that mean? If I'm playing art song, it's a little different because that's piano and voice, and that's how the composer wanted it. If I'm doing a
okay.
reduction, I know the orchestration for what the composer wants, so that I know what
Mhm,
instrumentation's there, so I can like color it in a certain
sure.
way, just because that's super important. So, and then when I'm doing my own stuff, it's I already know all of that, so it's a little bit
Mhm,
easier, and I can just
sure.
like kind of focus on then figuring out how the vocal line fits in with everything and doing that. So, but it's like the same process of bringing it and also seeing what the singer is also doing. It's, depending on the rep too, you know, if it's more bel canto or if it's Stravinsky, it's going to be very different how we approach, you know, the phrasing and the articulation. So yeah.
Cool. So who are some of the composers that you really enjoy playing that coming up in your development?
Well, I really love the music of Strauss. I love like Electra. I love Ariadne, Rosenkavalier, For Last Songs, Salome. So a lot of his output has had a huge influence on me. I also love the music of Kurt Weill, and Cole Porter, the American Songbook. That's also been a big influence, and then obviously Britain, because Britain and Purcell basically like teach you all you need to know about setting English, like just because they do it so well. So that's been I love also I love Baroque music. I also love like the bel canto, like Donizetti and that kind of stuff.
I could totally hear the Baroque influence in the piece we played from.
I love Baroque music.
Doing that. Yeah.
I love Bach. I sometimes sight read Bach for fun. Like I especially did that a lot when I was younger. So yeah, I really love that. I do love like Stravinsky and Messiaen. So those are some other composers, and I also love being influenced by you know, contemporary musical theater. I also have other rep that's very crossovery. So I also love exploring that side because I'm someone who just loves music, and I just love any music that's at a high level, and so that all genres and styles. And I've also dipped my foot into jazz, and that's been super fun. And I also like wrote a pop song with my sister a couple of years ago for her first album. So yeah, I love like I just love like I kind of just like love music, just all of it,
of all kinds. I think that gives me so much more of a complete, you know, education as a musician. And we have Eugenia here saying hello.
Hi.
What's going on, Eugenia?
Yeah,
we'll be talking to you soon in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we just did a live stream. We just did a live stream last month where she sang an art song, a part in my cantata, and at the end of the month, she's singing the Componist, doing a virtual, very short version of Ariadne auf Naxos, but it's called Ariadne auf Corona. So she's gonna be doing so yeah, that's gonna be going up soon. So the Componist, she's doing that. So yeah, and also she was in Mother Goose, Tabula Rasa, and Christmas Carol. We do a lot of stuff. So yeah, together.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I love her.
Awesome. Yeah, Eugenia is fantastic. And Emma just said lots of influences from different genres, and I think that, you know, just to kind of go a little bit further what I said earlier, you know, having a really good appetite for art in general. I mean, you have a really good appetite for not just music, but poetry and creative writing and different genres of music as well. And I think putting that all together, I mean, as that continues to marinate, I think what you can bring to the table from a musical perspective as a composer is going to be really, really incredible to see. I mean, you already have a huge body of work. For someone who's, you know, you're not even above 30 yet, right? So,
no, I just turned 26.
You don't have to disclose your age.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm 26. Like,
yeah. So I mean, this is like, you know, there's a book I was listening to called Mastery, and it just talks about Mozart and Wagner and a lot of different, you know, just high performers or well-known, quote unquote, greats, right? And you know, there's a consistent thread across all of them, which is that, you know, from a young age, they were really exposed to a very wide array of repertoire. They started writing early, at least in the case of Mozart, very, very much so. And through that, they developed their voice quite early. And they started to absorb things from other composers and then modify them and just transmute them into what they wanted to create. So I think it's really cool because, you know, Mozart was focused on the classical repertoire. Obviously, the jazz didn't exist, but now you have the benefit of jazz, pop music, rock, you know, classical, and
Also,
this
also in
yeah.
classical, tonality isn't stigmatized anymore, and I use it. I mean,
Mhm.
like a lot of my music is tonal, so like
Yeah.
most of it, basically all of it is tonal. So like, yeah, like also we're at a time I think in the world where it's okay to write in different styles. Like it doesn't have to be serial or like pointillistic.
Mhm.
Like in the
Yeah.
70s, like 50s and 70s,
Mhm.
during the 20th century, academia was so rigid with like what you could and couldn't write for
Right.
like
Right.
concert music, and I think the idea of that has been kind of turned on its head because you have so many different kinds of concerts also that people go to, and also like the audience for classical music has changed too, as
Mhm.
like, and so different interests. So I think there could be more intersection, and I think it's been like nice to see that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Can you tell us about the song "Yellow" that Eugenia is referencing? I'm curious. What is it about?
Yes. So Yellow is a song I wrote the music and words for about 2 years ago. And basically
Mhm.
it's about taking the color and the aspects of it, like loyalty and trust, and also exploring ideas of possible like naiveness or
Mhm.
disloyalty, like worries about that in a romantic situation. It's basically, it's like, you have a rendezvous with a friend who you've known for a year, and you don't know where
Mhm.
things are going to go, but he'll always be there. That's how the song ends, but it ends on like a deceptive cadence. So it's not exactly, it's sort of like the unresolved conflict of like just
Mhm.
kind of a situation where there is no way to describe it. And
There's
I
no clarity, right?
no, there's no clarity.
Mhm.
Story of my life. Anyway, it's really, I was really influenced by like Barber, Summer, the Knoxville, and also by Copeland, and that was a huge influence on it. And so I love to use colors to describe
Mhm.
moods. I've kind of done that in different things. So I have yellow, I have an aria blue in the opera, but would be called Tabula Rasa. I have a
Mhm.
song called Red is Self Love, sometimes green. You get the idea. I like to use
Yeah,
colors,
yeah.
and so yellow's like one
Nice.
of those pigments, and it's a favorite of mine on my concerts. I usually program yellow when I'm doing something, just because I like playing. I like playing it, and also a lot of singers can sing it, like mezzos and sopranos both sing it. So
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How much do you incorporate, like, transposition and, adjusting songs for specific singers or specific voice types? How much do you do that?
Oh, well, that's actually what I did with Yellow, because I originally wrote that for bass baritone and baritone.
Oh,
And so
awesome.
then I was like, oh, you know what? I'd love to have this as a soprano piece. So I transposed it,
Mhm.
and I really actually prefer the soprano transposition. And I actually
Oh,
really like it. So
interesting.
yeah, that's how it kind of worked. And so I also
Yeah.
did that and also I have a song cycle called Robots, where I have a bass baritone and a soprano version. And it's transposable too. I mean, if there were other voice types that wanted, I could move it. My music is, a lot of it's transposable. I mean, there's probably like a couple of pieces I think are with where they sit, and with the piano part, like
Mhm.
where I prefer the range of transpositions a bit more limited. But
Sure.
like
Yeah.
with Yellow, you can basically transpose it to any
Mm.
key you want to sing it. Also, it sits like in the middle of the voice, so like it's like
Oh,
a
so it's
mezzo,
very
and
friendly.
yeah, I do. I like I work with a lot of singers who you could call like Zwischens, or like because they have like
Mhm.
qualities from more than one Fach. So
Yeah.
I definitely use that a lot. So I find myself having my soprano rep also sung by my mezzo colleagues, and then also,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's something that's like a very common theme, and also a lot of Eugenia's repertoire, because I wrote for her as a soprano, and I sort of, when she
Yeah.
transitioned to mezzo, I was like, oh, like I actually think of you as that, because she has high notes, but she sits a little
Yeah.
lower than the standard soprano range, and I was like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, and that's because like all of her stuff is like all the arias. Oh yeah, that's mezzo. So
Mm.
that's also how like writing for singers as opposed to voice types. Because if I thought, oh, this is like mezzo, then it's just,
Mhm.
which I think is also a problem with composers nowadays, is that they don't have a tactful way to have a real world application to writing music that can actually be sung, because it's all theoretically what could be done, but they don't have an idea of how it would actually sound. So that's like a
Mm.
pet
Mhm.
peeve of mine that I'm concerned about. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, Eugenia says you know her.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's important. I mean, when Puccini was writing, was it what was it? I can't remember which opera it was, but he had a specific soprano in mind for the lead role. Oh my god, I can't remember which one it is, but yeah, I think it's Lee Wang.
Was it Tridico? Was
There,
it?
thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
It was one
yeah.
of those.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, he had a specific person in mind, and I think it's good to do that and then collaborate with the singer on what allows the character to shine, but also make sure that the singer can bring that to life. So it's just amazing that we have like such great tools today to like virtually to work and also Sibelius, or I don't know, do you use Sibelius or do you use something else
I
too?
use
So,
Finale. I've been using it since I was like 10. So like that's just like
okay.
I tried to see what Sibelius was like, but I just like I
Mhm.
Finale I just get. So I just like I
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's like yeah, and also on that point you were saying, like also composers, all the standard rap, it was written for singers in mind, like particular singers. Like it wasn't like
Mhm.
I'm writing this for insert voice type,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
a lot of those delineations came 100 years after the fact that we
Right.
use now. So it's
Ah,
sort of
yeah.
like
Good
so
point.
that I try to use a practice of writing for singers because it also helps personalize it and also like can give me a sense of what I can hear in my head. It's for like orchestrating and for doing form. It's really helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, I had an experience last year. Actually, it was supposed to be, yeah, it was supposed to be last year. I'd done some work with the American Opera Project. We're putting together a couple of smaller, sort of short operas, and it was really cool to get to work with the composer and give feedback. Like, okay, this is not too comfortable, and it's kind of loud here. So, if to be able to cut, I need it to be in a certain range.
Yeah.
And yeah, just at working with composers to work through the process was actually really interesting. It's really
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super fun. I've also premiered a lot of collaborative pieces like of other
mm.
people. So and
Oh, great.
I always love that process. I love playing like music that's newly written or recently written because I can figure out the composer's sound. I can get to work with them and kind of
Mhm.
figure out how they like to approach articulation, touch, color, pedaling, so many things. So it's like I love doing it and it's something I do a lot of too. So yeah.
Cool. So what's next? What's the next major thing you're working on?
So the next so the Ariadne Alf Corona, which is going to be on my YouTube, is going to be coming up on May 24th. On
Mhm.
June 24th, which is a Thursday, I'm going to be having a live stream with Core Productions. So Joe Beatel, who I
Okay.
mentioned earlier, is going to be singing two of my song cycles, Songs of the Sea and Opods, and soprano
Cool.
Tracy Cox is going to be singing Songs of the Coppice Gate, and I'm really excited. I've never worked with Tracy before, so that'll be super fun. And
Nice.
Joanna's been really wonderful to work with, and so yeah, I love all the people involved, and it's going to be a super fun time. So that's the big thing coming up in June. I'm going
Mhm.
to be doing some teaching, and then in August I'm going up to Vermont because I'm going to accompany a
Oh.
production of Tosca with Barn Opera. So that's going to be like yeah,
That's
so that's
cool.
going to be the
Mhm.
first
Mhm. Cool.
full show I've accompanied post pandemic. It's going to be
Nice.
outdoors, and it's
Mhm.
going to be with like vaccinated audiences. They have a very specific, very strict policy, and we're going to be
Mhm.
quarantined in a bubble. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I'm
Okay.
excited about
Okay.
that. And then who
Cool.
knows what happens after that? So many things depend.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean, yeah, it's everything's in flux right now, but
definitely.
it's really good. It's good to be working. It's good to have things you're looking forward to and productions that are coming up. So
Yes,
that's very exciting.
yes.
So guys, I put Felix's Instagram in the bottom there as a ticker. Find him on Instagram. The original, is it Fifi?
Yeah,
Is
yeah. That's
that your nickname for
That
your
is
kids?
that is my nickname. Yeah, it was given to me in college by my best friend in my undergrad because her
Okay.
sister was always called Fifi, so it's sort of like stuck.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. Very good. That's awesome.
yeah,
Let me also throw your email there as well. It's gonna switch it real quick. If you want to get in touch with Felix to hear about his works, if you want to work with him as a pianist or as a composer, this is his email, felixjarrar@gmail.com. It is nice to have a unique name because you can
right.
actually
It's
have
yeah, it's great. It's so easy to tell my email now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. One of my first emails, it was actually funny. I I wanted KofiHayford@gmail.com, but it was taken. It wasn't like,
Wow.
and it was funny. I have a brother who's also called Kofi because Kofi's a name you're given if you're born on Friday as a male, and
Got it.
and so I had to go with like a super long one. It's Kofi Mensa Hayford, and it's like two H's in there. People always get confused. So I wound up, once I got my website, got the KofiHayford.com domain, and now it's a hell of a lot easier. But
Yes.
all to say, if you have a unique name, it definitely helps. All right. Well, this has been wonderful. Let's see if there are any other comments, questions. Yeah, we thank you guys for those who tuned in, for your kind comments. And this broadcast is going to be available so you can review it later. We're going to share it across the DictionBuddy universe so that more people get to put their eyes on this. But Felix, you said May 24th you have a show, June 24th you have a show.
Yeah.
You have something in August as well.
Yes.
Tosca, right? In Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a very busy guy, but make sure if you want to get in touch with him, you reach out to him via email. So, this has been another Diction Buddy one-on-one podcast. We're kicking things off again after a little bit of a hiatus. So we're excited to re-engage with you as our audience, to bring you unique and interesting and accomplished people like Felix. And so stay tuned. Our next one will feature Eugenia Forteza, who's actually in the chat. And that'll be also another very interesting discussion just about the music business in general, right? And what's happening with the classical world. So once again, Felix, it's been awesome. Really fascinating story and background that you have. We'll be sharing more of your content. If you have any specific things you'd like us to share on our Facebook page and Instagram as we get the Instagram relaunched, please send that over and we'll make sure to get that circulated. So
great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.